And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Designated Players and MLS podcast. It has been a few days since this announcement came out, but we wanted to give it time for the dust to settle and the news to come out because MLS has made some of its biggest changes in its history over the weekend and some other interesting pivots as we move forward. And we wanted to give our thoughts on them. First and foremost, unless you've been living under a rock, you know what we're about to tell you. MLS has officially changed its calendar. It is in line with the European calendar and will be so moving forward from 2027 onwards. This is the first time it's ever happened in MLS and probably the second time it's happened in league history. I think NISA tried to do one of this one time, but obviously NISA not nearly at the level of MLS, but very, very interesting time. We're going to share our thoughts on it. Apple deal was also announced to have some changes, moving away from the second subscription-based model and putting it in front of every Apple TV subscriber, as well as some other tidbits on the length and the cost of it. And finally, one that's not official yet, but has been rumored to be very close to being done, is the change to a single table format with divisions in the league instead of two conferences. I mean, there's just so much going on, and it has so much emphasis and weight that it could bring to this league, and we're going to give you our thoughts on all of it. I'm Andrew, that's Connor, and here is this week's massive MLS news. Big Cone. It's been a minute. How we doing?
I bet you're so excited. This is like your Super Bowl. You get another week to talk about Apple TV. At this point, I think you must have stock. Do you own Apple stock? That's my
Brother,
guess at this point. You
my super
love a good Apple TV episode.
my Super Bowl is when Justin Fields throws for over 75 yards. All right. When we hit 75 yards, it's like get the parade going because that'll never happen again.
Well, as far as
Um,
you know, they could be having a parade. You're in South Carolina, so
Trust me, you know who's in my phone. You know exactly what I would be being told that there was a parade going on right now for the New York Jets. But that's your NFL news for the day. The no, I like this because again, it's different from just the usual conversation of this game happened or this game happened because it has such an impact as we move forward in the league and with the view on long term instead of just right now, and that's kind of always been something I like to talk about. So outside of that, I also like to talk about scarves. In case you didn't know, what are you rocking for us today?
oh, I know that all too well, my friend. You better start pointing because I know you have this one and you love to point. Um, Considering the calendar change, I think is going to affect this team probably the most. I'm going with a little Minnesota love. These trees should be covered with snow.
Right there, good old Minnesota. I like that scarf. That's a good one.
It's a great scarf.
We are on momentous occasion for United States soccer, so we've got the U.S. scarf, and also on the back of their 2-1 win versus Paraguay. Atlanta flop Miguel Almiron taking part, and Red Bull legend and attacker of fans in the crowd, Kaku, also making his appearance shown. Um, Good little game. I only saw the back end of it because I was doing some other things, but hopefully I get to catch the next one coming up. Connor, Connor. This might go on for quite a while, this conversation, because there's a lot to talk about. But I will say, we made the comment last week about like the long episode, and we got a lot of people coming back saying we love the long episodes, keep them coming, which I was shocked about. But we got a couple people who are really interested in the long form stuff. So let's block out
Oh,
3 hours
yeah,
and
they're
chat.
gonna like this one, I'm sure.
Yeah, let's block out 3 hours and chat calendar change Apple TV.
Okay, relax. Let's settle down now, all right?
All right,
Three
maybe not
hours?
three. Maybe not 3 hours. Maybe not, because I got some
Maybe not.
other stuff I
Definitely
need to
not.
do as well. Why don't we start off then with the biggest change of the lot? And it literally has split the fan base 50-50. I can scroll through Twitter and have every other tweet be for or against this change. I've never seen something like it so divisive in sports other than the calendar switch of MLS. Because as you know, MLS is massive and has a stranglehold on sports Twitter and things like that. But this is official, right? Starting in 2027, MLS will kick off its season in July, take a break in the winter, mid December, all the way through January, start up again in February. It will end in May, like everything else, and then pick back up 2 weeks later, or 2 months later, excuse me. There is going to be this weird interim between 2026 and 2027 where MLS is going to play a 14 game season to bridge the gap, full with playoffs, and MLS Cup, which, as you know, is going to be won by Red Bull. Because if we're going to win any MLS Cup, it's going to be the one that doesn't count. It's going to be crazy, and there's a lot of things to talk about. But I wanted to just get your thoughts on this first. What do you think of the change? And we've talked calendar so much, and there's tons of places you can go and check it out. We did one with John Rollins from Loud and Proud Orlando. We've done stuff with Just Us. We've chatted about it with Matty Casey. I mean, we've talked about this so frequently, but now that it's official and you've seen it laid out as it's been implemented, what are your thoughts?
I don't remember exactly what my thoughts were in the past when we've spoken on this. Like I can't remember exactly what I
let,
would have
let, let
said,
me let
but
me let me just give you a hint. You probably were on the fence, saying it's probably good or maybe bad. If I had to
yeah,
guess.
probably. Probably some things are good here, some things are good here. That seems about right. I would say, this isn't something where it's a make or break for me. It wasn't, I'm not one of those people where it's like, I refuse to watch the league unless they have a European calendar. I will still follow the league regardless of whether it's in its current calendar state or its future calendar state. That being said, I am definitely a fan of this change because I think the biggest thing for me is like the league has grown exponentially lately and has started to kind of have more of a foothold in the actual market around the world. And the only way we're going to be able to progress that further is by having our season match up with the rest of them because then it just gives us that much more of a foothold in the market to be able to like spend at times where teams are willing to let players go. It's so much harder to do that when you're trying to bring in players where the players on their current teams are in mid-season form. They don't want to get rid of people mid-season, right? It's a lot easier for them to move on when it is in the summer and it's the off season. They're gearing up for the next season. So I think that's going to be a huge plus for the league. And I think that's something where you can't really like find an alternative way around it. And when you're on like differing timing schedules, calendars, obviously like the big concern with shifting the calendar to the way that it's planning to be shifted are the winter games. There's places like Minnesota is going to be brutal for them to play games where it's like 0 degrees outside and snowing. But I think that's stuff that you can kind of work around and figure out. Other, the US isn't the only cold place in the world that's going to have this calendar structure. So there's going to be a way to figure that out. In my opinion, there's not really a way that you can really get the most out of the transfer market when you have the current calendar setup that MLS has. So I think this is a great move for them. I'm happy. I'm really looking forward to like how this is all. It's also going to line up really well with the CBA deal that's going to come up right around the same exact time. So I think a lot of momentum being carried into the next couple of years of big changes heading into 2027, 2028 for this league.
Yeah, listen, it's a gamble, right? And I listened to Don kind of talk about this, and some of the things I took from that, right? He talked about this idea of the cold weather, right? And that's a real risk, right? If you're not going to put fans in the seats, then you are going to lose money, period, right? Not only just on the ticket itself, but on the concessions they're not going to buy, on the merch they're not going to buy, on the parking they're not going to pay for. I mean, there's tons of money there that you are risking. But one of the things I found it interesting that he noted was they couldn't do this 5 years ago because the strength of the fan bases wasn't good enough, right? And I started thinking about that. I'm like, that makes a little bit of sense. How true is it? I don't know, right? I can't look back and be like, oh yeah, like diehard Minnesota didn't exist 5 years ago when they were bad, but now they're really good and people care about them. I'm not sure. I don't know if I believe that. However, I think it's something that they obviously did their work behind it to see if that made sense, right? They had the owners weigh in a ton. I mean, I think they said they've been talking about this for 2 years. So the owners have put their 2 cents in and said, yeah, we think we can handle this. So let's push for it. The thing that I love the most, and it's not something I thought about until we kind of came out and put it onto paper and said this is the way it's going to be done. 91% of the games in the new schedule will be played along the same timelines as the current schedule. The schedules line up almost exactly, minus one or two weekends, I think, in December. and maybe early February. Like you get an extra weekend in December, an extra week early or two in February, I think is the way that works out. But everything else is the same. So we're sitting here like losing our mind over 3 weeks totally. Like it feels like people are blowing up just because it's different. And I understand that, and I can feel for that. But if you're telling me that the only thing that we're doing is we're taking the start of the season and the end of the season and putting it in the warm months instead of the middle of the season in the warm months, I'm okay with that. I think that if you're looking at it, I think it'd be much nicer to go to a game at the because when are you getting most turnout, right? The beginning of the season and the end of the season, right? Everything's new and exciting. We want to see the year and the end of the season when we're pushing for playoffs, we're pushing for playoff seeding or whatever. Those are when you want the butts and seats because that's when you want all of your crowd support, right? You want to put a good presence out, start good and good, right? The middle teeters out anyway, whatever. But putting those both in July and May respectively, I think is great. And if you truly trust your fan base to be strong enough to stick it out through those extra winter months in the middle of the season, then you shouldn't have that much of an issue. I just don't see the big issue. And again, the big thing, we've taken MLS Cup and MLS Cup playoffs away from competition with the NFL and college football. Right now, the playoffs are currently going on as we are checking scores for the Jets and seeing how many times they're going to win this year. It's going to be 9, but whatever. Um, Against college football, I mean, like I said, I'm down here in the South. All they talk about is USC football. I mean, I was in Atlanta just this weekend doing some license work, and in between sessions, we're talking about LSU, we're talking about USC, we're talking about Clemson, we're talking about all these college football teams. We talk an ounce of soccer and none of MLS. So moving it out and putting it in another direction could raise the stakes of those games.
Another part of this that I hadn't previously thought about as well is it's really going to put an end to this whole conversation of what, like, for CONCACAF Champions League, this whole what if MLS wasn't at the start of their season when we're playing this competition. Well, now we don't have to have this what if. We'll get to see it. Are we truly still behind the ball compared to League MX, or was the start of the season actually something that was holding us back? I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, I don't think we'll be able, like, that's going to take a few years of the competition to really get a sense of that. I don't think we'll be able to be like, oh, first year, like, even if an MLS side won in the first year, I don't think you could just be like, all right, well, clearly that proves the calendar was holding us back. I think there's more sample size that needs to be there, but will definitely be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, but when we win the next 5 in a row, it's like, okay, well, now we've got to nerf them because we're just too overpowered. It's can be the way it is. But the other thing I really like is this idea that, and again, things that we've talked about before, but we are moving away from or rather moving in line with the international calendar, right? So, and this weekend was a perfect example of why this is a good thing, right? MLS Cup playoffs, New York City, Charlotte. Alonso Martinez balls out in 2 separate games to bring New York City past Charlotte into the second round of the playoffs. We go on international break. Martinez leaves to go play with Costa Rica. He has now torn his ACL. He is not only out for the playoffs, but he will go into next season, the majority of next season, hurt because the turnaround is so quick in the schedule, right? If we are in line with our uh, international calendar, we don't have that break. We can line our playoffs up around that. We don't have to worry about that. There was no way we could do it in the current setup. Even with if we, I mean, the only way we could have done it is getting rid of the 3-game series. I don't know what that's going to do moving forward, but in the current way, we couldn't do it. The new schedule will allow for uninterrupted playoffs, lining up with the international breaks. It minimizes the risks, at least in the playoff period, of losing players for outside factors, right? National team or whatever. You're able to work around that. So I think everybody can agree. And if you don't, I think maybe you're a little bit too much of a what are the kids calling these days? Shiles.
What? What are you trying to say?
You are so
Can you
not
stop
hip.
trying to be a boomer and just
You're
be a
so
zoomer?
not hip, bro.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm so not hip, bro. You
yeah,
got you
yeah,
got me there.
yeah.
He likes to act like he's from the 70s. You're a Zoomer just as much as I am. You're one of those. I was born in the wrong era, guys.
I was born in the wrong era. I've been 40 years old forever. Um, no, I think everybody can agree that having playoffs interrupted by an international break is stupid. It is not the way we should be doing things. It needs to change. It needs to get better. This is a good way to get that done.
I'm hearing us talk about a lot of positive things about this calendar change. I'm curious because you said it was a kind of a mixed reaction. What arguments are people making against this calendar change?
The arguments are very, very strong against the weather, right? You're going to kill the fan base because they're not going to want to go to games in the middle of this season, which means they're not going to have their attention on the league and they're just going to switch out altogether. And having Apple TV doesn't account for that, right? But that's the big one is you have just killed. I'm not going to go back and watch, games in February in Harrison because it's going to be miserable and I'm not going to want to do that. So I'm canceling my season tickets. But I think it was Matt Baker from Flyover Footy who made a pretty good comment. And I may be wrong there, so quote me on it. But he was like, a lot of people are losing their minds over this without actually thinking about what it means. People are coming out saying, I'm canceling my ticket because I don't want to go to games in February. When they went to games in February this year to start the season, and you're going to have a significantly longer time in warmer climates, right? July through to September. I'll use September. I'll use October. I mean, October down here was really nice. Heck, I'm in middle of November and it's beautiful out here. But and then on the back end, March, April, May, they're worried about late November into early February, and we're not playing for 6 of those 10 weeks. It seems like the negatives are. I was told this is going to be bad, and I liken this to the soccer fan who's never watched MLS who calls it a retirement league, right? It's in the same thought processes. I was told this was bad 5 years ago, and I've done zero research behind it, but because it's happened, I'm mad about it. And I think that after it gets implemented, and this may be me being a little bit more positive than anything. I think after it gets implemented, a lot of people are going to realize, oh, this actually isn't that bad. And I'll tell you, I was one of those people for a long time, like, oh, I don't want to play in the cold winter. Like that doesn't make any sense. They're genuinely they're not playing in the cold outside of 4, maybe 5 weeks of a 34 to 40 week season. The percentages line up significantly better now with important dates, the start and the end in warm, comfortable climates. And by the way, a lot of people talk about like, oh, like May and June, they're not going to play. That's when I used to take my kids to games. Sure. But now you get to take your kids to games in warm weather at the start and at the end of the year instead of at some random Wednesday night in Harrison against Vancouver for a game that doesn't matter. Right? The games you're going to will now have value, and that value will draw you back in. And that's something I just thought of on the spot because I didn't put it together where it's like, oh, the types of games you're going to will now have increased meaning, and now you're going to want to go watch it on TV if you can't get out there in the cold.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and people definitely think this way anyway, but people act like there's just a bunch of clueless morons in charge of the league that are just making spur of the moment decisions. Like as you said, there's 2 years of discussions going into this. They're going to come up with a plan that makes it so that it is not unbearable for people to sit out and watch games in like Minnesota, Vancouver. They will figure it out the same way that like other leagues around the world figure it out when they're playing in the cold as well. I mean, and to be honest with you, as much as it sucks to sit out in the cold, it's just as bad to go sit and watch a game in Miami where it's 90% humidity and 100 degrees outside.
Yeah,
I mean, look at the Club World Cup. People were literally passing out.
I was there. I watched it happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not that much better than being severely cold. I'm not
Yep.
saying like either of them are good, but it's like we're cherry picking here. We're
Yeah.
saying, oh, cold, bad, hot, fine. Both of them have really like both extremes are not going to be good for any fan that's watching. So
Yeah.
it's like you're not going to the season's too long. You're not going to find some schedule where you're going to be able to avoid all of this. It's impossible. You got to pick and
Correct.
choose. And I
Well,
think the
and we talk
benefit
about and we talk about this all the time with the schedule where You are going to flip it, and half of the people who live in a certain area of the country are going to love it, and half of them are going to hate it. And if you keep it the same way, that percentage just flips. You're not going to make everybody happy. However, you are going to you can prepare a stadium over 10 years to deal with cold. And there are actually people who are coming in saying, yeah, we're going to prep, heated, fields or rooftops or whatever. And even, you can do the same. I know Atlanta closes the roof and will turn on the AC, and that's fine too. But at the end of the day, just as an individual, you can put a ton of layers on, but you can't take a ton of layers off, right? There is a limit to that. And then also you can use heat warmers and warm drinks and whatever, but dehydration is a nasty thing. And there are certain weather scenarios where you cannot get hydrated enough. And that is a scary thing. It is really, really tough to watch happen, but yeah, you got to keep in mind that that's a real thing, right? And I think that in terms of person safety, and this is going to sound weird to say, but I do think that people underestimate heat significantly more than they underestimate cold. Like if they're going to go to a cold game,
100%.
they are going to be decked out. They're going to have gloves and secondary gloves and hats and scarves and whatever. People will show up to a hot game, drink 5 beers, and be like, "Oh, I'm good to go," and then pass out because they're dehydrated extra quickly. It is a it's equally as tough. So there is going to be an argument for there. Yeah, you talked about the lining up of the transfer window too. I agree with you, and we've talked about that for a while. Overall, it's a win for me. I think yeah, it'll be colder. You're gonna have to deal with some weather, sure. I also think that they will likely, and here's where I'll end this area. I think that you will see them go and learn with the punches, right? Similar to the way Apple TV worked, where oh, we're gonna put games all over or we're gonna put every game at 7:30, and we're just gonna play it. And everyone's like, hey, this kind of sucks. So they pivoted off of that, right? There are certain things that they still haven't edited off yet, but they every kind of time you go out and you're like, hey, I don't really like this, they listen, they learn, and they adjust. If they watch this and they realize, ooh, the first 3 weeks of the season we had to cancel, or the middle 3 weeks of that December and February, we had to cancel 7 games because of the snow and the whatever. Well, now those teams are going to either get away games in that time and have more home games on the front or back end, or they find a way to, I can't even think of a way. I think they would just do scheduling better, but
Hmm.
they will learn from that and make sure it doesn't happen frequently to where this is a non-issue, in my opinion, or maybe in my hope.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. And listen, the cold weather, it's probably going to keep some people out of the seats early, especially in normal northern climates, excuse me. That will mean they have to watch it at home, right? And with the games not being on linear cable, they're going to have to turn to Apple TV. Ah, I see you. You didn't know where I was going with
That
it.
was
You didn't.
that was no, no, no. I picked up on it. I was smiling because that was actually a fantastic transition.
You didn't know where I was going, and then boom, you're like, oh, that's so cool. Oh yeah, they call me the king of transitions for a reason.
All right, well,
Um,
let's settle down now. Definitely not the
um,
king of you. Oh my God, I almost called you the king of humidity. You could be the king of humidity too if you want.
I do sweat a lot in the humidity, so I can take that. Um, Listen, they're gonna have to go to Apple TV, and as we talked about Apple TV, wow, now you got me tripping over my words. This whole episode's gone off the rails. Um,
We talked about what we needed to talk about. All right, people are clicking off at
End
this
it.
point anyway.
It's over. Um, Apple TV's got a lot of changes coming, and I want to start with the first one that I think we were calling for a couple weeks ago that has been hinted with MLS playoffs right now, and it's that MLS season pass subscription is gone. All Apple TV subscribers will get MLS access just by logging in. It is similar to the way they're doing F1. It is similar to the way they did MLB Friday nights. It is a huge step forward, similar to the way we talked about it last week, but let's revisit it and get some thoughts, right? Your instant impact or instant reaction to what we've done here.
I mean, it's always going to be a good thing. The more barriers you take down to your ability to watch games, the better it's going to be. And I think it's going to be great because now, so you had mentioned it before with F1 being on the platform now, and I think that's a sport that's rising a lot in popularity lately. I think that's going to be a whole new group of people who now have no barrier. Like if you're signing up for Apple to watch F1, you no longer have a barrier to watch MLS. And the nice thing about F1 is there's not going to be a lot of schedule conflicts with Major League Soccer because F1 is kind of all over the globe, right? So, if they're racing in France, that's likely going to be earlier in the day. And then you have all this time now where it's like, okay, maybe I already have access to this like for free. Like I don't have to pay extra to see this. I'll just flip it on. Like, why not? Kind of this, I don't want to say because we've talked about this before, and I think we both kind of agree that this doesn't necessarily have as much of an impact as it may seem like it does, or the way that people kind of pose it having an impact. But it's a little bit similar to the way that you would talk about them being on cable and just you're flipping channels and you happen to stumble upon it and start watching games. This is kind of like that. I mean, it's like, okay, I'm here for F1, but I see this here. I have access to it. Maybe I check it out. I've heard of Messi. I may not be super into the sport, but I know this Messi guy. Let me throw on a game. Let me see what this Messi guy's all about. And then, it's maybe that's what snowballs it, and you start to find some interest in the sport, in the league, in certain players, whatever it may be. I'm always going to be on board with them taking as many barriers down as they can.
That is exactly where I'm going to pick up and take off because we've talked about this a lot. And it always comes down to this idea of like, oh, it needs to be on cable so people can just flip it on and watch it whenever they want. If you believe that is true, then you should be jumping for joy for this change. We talked about it last week that putting it in front of people for free, right? So no secondary window, right? You talk about the people who are already subscribed for, they signed up for Ted Lasso, right? Or they signed up for F1, like you mentioned, or MLB, or whatever they signed up for. That number is at the latest check, and I don't know how accurate this number is. The latest number was 45 million households. That's 45 million people plus, however big the family is, right? If you think that MLS needed to be on cable because somebody was just going to scroll by, click the game on, watch it, and be like, oh, this is huge. I want to watch this game and be a fan forever, then this is the move for you. Because I saw a report, and again, take it for a grain of salt, that linear cable reach is going down 33% heading into 2026 year over year. Cords are getting cut. So people are now navigating to streaming, however it may be. And we can still have the conversation. We won't do it today, but we still have the conversation whether Apple is the right place to do it. Don't know. But if you like, this is going to be what you thought it would be if it was going on cable. And to me, it's actually going to be better because when you're on cable, you're flipping through and all you see are the words, right? On the description, right? Major League Soccer and then team versus team. We're in the modern era and people need to see video clips or fancy thumbnails to get drawn into things, right? You don't just look at words and be like, oh, I want to do that. You need something to jump and catch you, right? They're going to put faces like Lionel Messi. They're going to put faces like Thomas Muller. They're going to put faces like Heung-min Son on the thumbnail, and people are going to be like, oh, that's where they're playing now? I wonder how they're doing. And in they go. They're going to watch the game, and maybe that does draw them in, right? Maybe they see Heung-min Son and Bouanga running the game, right? And they're like, oh, I love LAFC. That's going to be my team now. Or they see Lionel Messi and friend doing their thing, and they turn into be a Miami fan. As awful as that may be, have fun, right? You move on and you see Emil Forsberg and Choupo-Moting in Red Bull land, and you're like, oh, I remember them back in the Bundesliga. I'll watch them too. That's how I would get involved if I
All
were me.
all five of those people are going to be thrilled.
But and again, now you think about it, right? So, and we're not going to touch this topic, right? But it has to go hand in hand with one more move, and that's a salary cap change. You have to be able to go get the people who want to go see them, so you sign up. And then from there, it is what it is, right? But if you truly believe that having it easy access to random people scrolling is going to be what gets this league into the next level, this should be the move of the century for you. 45 million people just gained access to MLS. Plus, with F1 coming around, that number is going to skyrocket absolutely through the roof because apparently there's a huge F1 market. I've never seen a race in my life, but apparently there's a huge market.
I haven't seen it either. It kind of ties with there was the Netflix documentary, and I think that got a lot of people interested in it. I know of people like friends who watched the documentary and then became interested in it. So it is a fast growing sport, which is good because it's on the same platform as Major League Soccer. So, it's opportunity there for us. It doesn't worst case scenario, zero people that watch F1 watch Major League Soccer. That's the worst case scenario. It's not going to hurt you to have this situation. Like this is only going to be good for the league.
Yeah, and you know that's not true, right? People who watch F1 will watch soccer. And if they want to watch soccer and they see Lionel Messi, they'll watch Lionel Messi. And then they go and figure things out from there. Like, I would really be interested, and obviously we're not going to get these numbers or data, but I'd really be interested if there's some F1 fan in Charlotte, right, who has no idea that Charlotte FC exists. They just watch F1 and they're like, you know, a Premier League guy or whatever. And then all of a sudden they pop in, they see Wilfred Zaha on the screen. They're like, wait a second, I remember him at Palace. And then all of a sudden they get brought and again, this is very wishful thinking. We already said that this doesn't happen at a number that makes any difference. But it'd be interesting to see if that is a real thing.
Yeah.
There is also the idea, or the fact, it's not an idea anymore, that they've changed the parameters of the deal. They are cutting the deal 3.5 years early. So it ends in 29 instead of 32. They also lost a little bit of money because of that half season they're going to do in between 26 and 27. So they lost about half the price per season for that. However, they gained an extra 50 million over the last 2 years. So 27, 28, and even 29 probably, or no, 29 is the last year. So I think it stayed the same. The other side of it is that Apple also lost their opt-out clause. So in 2027, there was an opt-out clause. Say, hey, if this isn't working for us, we don't like it. We have the opportunity to leave. They gave that up to see this out. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that information.
I would say that's kind of promising, and maybe I'm being too optimistic here, but if you're removing your opt-out clause, I feel like that's your sign that okay, we're feeling pretty confident about this product. Because if you were kind of wavering, why would you agree to get rid of that? Right? If it was borderline, you'd keep that in there as an option for you to get out at an earlier time and stop bleeding money. If this was something that was really losing money for Apple, like this is a company at the end of the day, right? Like they're all about making money. It's all about creating shareholder value. All right, let me tell you, I'll teach you what you may have learned one thing from your accounting class, and it is all about creating shareholder value. Um, so if it was truly bleeding money, I don't think they would get rid of that clause. So I think it's promising that they got rid of that, even if it means shorter term in the long term. I just hope that they can, me personally, I hope they can extend it once it expires. I think it would be tough for them to kind of pick up and move to another platform again, with the sole exception maybe being Peacock. I think being on the same streaming platform as the Premier League could be helpful for them. Otherwise, I've significantly liked Apple more than like ESPN. I would be concerned about them going back to an ESPN or like a Fox model where we take a step backwards in a time where it's really important because like we talked about it, there's all these changes coming into play that I think are going to be momentum shifters for the league. Don't hurt yourself by taking a step backwards on the streaming platform. I'm optimistic that hopefully they can continue once it does expire, and I'm hoping that removing this opt out is a sign that like okay, things are actually going pretty well.
The This is getting blown, by the way, this is getting blown so far out of proportion online.
Oh, I'm sure. I have
You've got you've got
zero
you've got
doubt.
the anti-MLS crowd who are like billboard material. Apple deal sucks. They're cutting it short, taking away money. MLS is failing. The world is ending. And then you got the other ones who are like, "Hey, we're getting more money and we have flexibility to find new deals early." I lean towards that camp. And actually, really where I lean is I don't really care so long as we keep moving forward, right? I don't want to be in this like, oh, we're happy and we're going to keep the salary cap low and we'll, the schedule change will do enough for us and all this sort of stuff. I'm happy. As long as we keep pressing forward and bringing in good names and creating good atmospheres, that's where I'm in. I do want to think positively on this, that it's good for MLS because with the World Cup coming, more eyes now being able to see the product, as we just spoke about, and soccer interest spiking, you would think that as long as they continue this path of bringing in these stars and getting eyes on the product, there's going to be competition to put their product on the platform. So if it comes 4 years earlier than it was before. Now we're looking at what? It was $2.5 billion over 10 years. It's 250 mil. We're looking now somewhere with this half thing. Maybe we're looking at closer to $1.8 billion, right? Give or take. I didn't do the math on this, but if we're going to bypass, we'll say $700 million for the opportunity to add an extra 1.5 billion on the next deal 4 years early, it makes a lot of sense, right? And I think that's what they're gonna bank on is the idea that their trajectory and their movement is going to make their product worth significantly more in the short term, such that they are going to be able to get it bought for more money, right? That's where I think they're going to lean for that. There's one other idea I wanted to bring up before we move on to the last topic. And I've seen people talk about it online. I want to get your thoughts on it. People are now upset because a lot of the MLS subscriptions they didn't buy the Apple TV combo package. They just bought the MLS individual. And now they're upset they have to pay more to get Apple TV just to watch MLS than just getting the MLS package. What are your thoughts?
So you're saying people wanted to solely buy MLS, not including Apple TV, and now it's more, you're saying it's more expensive to get Apple TV instead of just MLS season pass.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I think that's a fair gripe. I can completely understand with people like, I'm everybody has a different money situation, right? Like there may be people who can really only justify being able to purchase MLS season pass and not being able to afford Apple TV Plus or afford Apple TV in order to watch Major League Soccer. And I can completely understand that. And I mean, in an ideal world, there maybe is a scenario where you can maybe have some kind of subscription where it just gives you access to MLS. I don't think that's probably going to happen, but that would be a nice middle ground for people like that. It's a hard scenario. I don't think you're going to find somewhere where you're going to be able to make every single person happy, and it's really tough for people like that who might not be able to justify it in their finances to pay a little bit of extra money to be able to watch the league now. If the league is still going to potentially do some of the free games like they have done in the past, then maybe that's an opportunity for them if they can't afford to purchase the Apple TV subscription. But I don't know if I can't think of a solution other than just like this little carve out of, okay, you could pay this amount and you only get access to this and not the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we did this when Apple TV came first around as well. It was like, oh, it's too expensive for me. And then you like compared it to things that they're already paying for. And it's like, it's not really that expensive, right? That being said, I also took a look and I texted this to you and I highly encourage a lot of people to do this. Apple and Peacock, home of MLS and home of the Premier League, are currently running a combo deal. And I don't know how long it's going to go for, where for $20 a month, which I think is the general price of Netflix these days, give or take, you get everything on Apple, everything on Peacock, no ads at all. Sports, TV, movies, documentary, everything. No ads. You get access to it all. $20 a month. I think Peacock I was paying something around like 15 on its own. And Apple itself was something like that. So you're getting both for a discounted price. If you don't care about ads and you don't mind having them in your TV and whatever, I think it's like $15 a month. So you save even more money there, which was right around the price of regular MLS season pass. So I think a lot of people are going to complain like, "Oh, it's more expensive and I have to buy Apple TV instead of just MLS." We had this conversation before where, "Oh, well, you're paying more money for Peacock because it's got the Premier League, but that costs you more money." Oh, well, Peacock comes with TV and all this sort of stuff. Well, now Apple comes with TV and all this sort of stuff too. So you're getting more for what you pay for, and maybe you stumble across something you want to watch. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But you're starting to see the double-edged sword of people who are like, "Oh, I'll pay for the Premier League because not only is it better quality, but it comes with all these TV shows." Well, now you've got Apple, who's pairing with Peacock, that will not only give you everything that the Peacock and gives you, but also everything Apple gives you and MLS. And now it's like, oh, now it's too much because it involves MLS. I don't know if that's necessarily a massive portion of the people, experiencing a change or going to be experiencing a change. But either way, I see it as a win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those people that you're talking about were probably just not going to watch the league anyway. But I can imagine there's some people out there who genuinely want to watch the league and just can't find a way to like justify
Mm-hmm.
paying the extra bit of money. And maybe it is because you know, they're just genuinely not interested in watching other content that's on there. And I definitely feel for those people, and I think it's tough, but I think it's also a scenario where it's like I don't know, yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I wish there was like an opportunity to be able to like carve out this little package that's cheaper, and it's like all right, you only get access to this, or you can get like this combo and not have to have this additional barrier that you have to pay for. It's like one
Mm-hmm.
way or the other, it's kind of like you're only paying once. It's not like everybody has to get Apple and MLS Season Pass. It's like, okay, we're giving you the opportunity. You can pay this cheaper price and only watch the league, or you could pay this one price and you get the league, F1, MLB, and all the Apple TV stuff. So it's like either way, it's one barrier, but you don't have to do both.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, yeah, I just felt like I wanted to hit on that a little bit more because it's been more developed. This one is not quite as developed yet, this idea, but I want to get your thoughts on it because it sounds like they're leaning towards and or about to confirm the idea that in 2027, when they change the schedule, they are also going to get rid of conferences and make one 30-team table with five divisions of six teams each. The way this would work is that in each division, you'd play the teams in your division twice, one home, one away, and then you would play every other team once, either home or away. And then the next year, if you were home, they'd come to you. Or if you were home, you'd go to them. And if you were away, they'd come to you. Theoretically, it sounds like the division winners, very similar to football, would make the playoffs, plus a set number of teams after that. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm interested.
I mean, it Americanizes it a lot, that's for sure. But I think it gives a little bit more power back to the supporter shield because now you're playing every team. You know, it's not the scenario where you're going to be like, all right, well, you're not playing every team. So it's like certain teams may potentially have an easier schedule because they're playing some of the worst teams and not playing some of the better teams. This gives a little bit more power back to the supporter shield. And I think I don't see a scenario where it takes away from the playoffs. I think you
Mhm.
still get the same special moments, the same meaning of the playoffs with this format versus the one that they currently have. So if it's an opportunity for them to like put a little bit more importance behind the supporter shield while not taking away from MLS Cup, I don't see why it would be a bad thing per se. I'm not against it. I mean, I think there's potential there, but obviously the way that they shape the divisions and stuff, it could in the short term definitely feel like, oh, this is bad for us because you could have teams that get put into bad divisions. Or sorry, when I say bad divisions, I mean like you could be in a division that's just absolutely loaded, right? And then you get punished for it potentially the way depending on however they set up whoever makes the playoffs behind the people that win the division. But um, I mean, I don't necessarily see the negatives behind enough negatives behind it to be like this is a bad thing. That being said, I would like to see it a little bit more flushed out before I like say anything super concrete on whether or not I'd be on board with it.
Yeah. I think first and foremost, you're going to see they've talked about changing structure in the regular season and the playoffs. So that tells me that if they go to a single table, they're going to change their playoff model. And the way that I see it is that if they were to do it right now, the top nine of each conference make it, right? So 18 total. It would be the top three from each division of six, plus the three best fourth placed finishers. That just seems a bit ridiculous to me.
Hmm.
The other way that they were talking about it is just a cutoff top X amount, right? So 18, 16, 12, whatever, make the playoffs. Doesn't matter what division or whatever. However, and then the other way they talked about it, there are lots of different things I've seen, is all the divisions get in, top division winners, and then it is back to the table. So if you're doing a division, you get your five division winners and you want to get to 16, well, then the next 11 highest on the table make it in. It's all interesting, right? But to
Yeah.
me, I'm really wondering if this leads to a smaller playoff structure, right? If they want to do just divisions, take the top two from each division and maybe the next two to best 16s from the table, right? So anywhere between 12 to 16 teams, and it's all division based. Or see now my head's starting to go. I'm getting a little crazy.
You're,
But
you're
what I
you're thinking this. Whatever solutions you're thinking of are probably not going to happen. So,
correct. They're getting a
because
little
they're
bit
going to
crazy.
come up with some ridiculous way for people to get into the playoffs.
Yes. Basically it's the top 16 unless Miami misses it, and then it's Miami in the
Yeah,
top 15. So
yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
but what I would really hope this brings, and this would lend to less of a division or the divisions have less of an impact outside of the winners. But you take the top 16, let's say it's 16, half the league, 16 out of 30, give or take. And it's just 1 versus 16 all the way down. 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15. Doesn't matter where you're located, what your division is, what your conference used to be, West, East, doesn't matter. I think that would make the playoffs super, super fun, right? I'm as much as I love watching FCC Columbus for the sixth time this year, or, you know, Red Bull Philly for the 15th time this year if we made the playoffs theoretically. I think this would be really fun to be like, hey, your first round, you're traveling cross coast to get to LAFC. Good luck. And then you look back like, oh, we've played them before. We had to go there already, and this is how we beat them. Like it just adds that extra layer of complexity that gives the playoffs that much more meaning. You mentioned something I just want to go back about the supporter shield having meaning. I think it does, but I still don't think it would have enough meaning to be the number one trophy because it's not even. It's
Yeah.
not balanced. But
Agreed. Agreed.
I think this would make the playoffs really fun if we go ahead and say, yeah, top 16, five division winners plus the next 11 all make it in. And then it's the number, you take those 16 teams and put them up into so if you won the division but you finished 18th for whatever reason, okay, now you're number 16 on the seating and you have to go play number one, right? Um, I think this could be so fun if they go this way. There's just a world of opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I am definitely all on board for shrinking the amount of teams that get into the playoffs. It just
Yes.
it gives more meaning to the cup. It makes it more meaningful for you to qualify. It's not the situation where it's like majority of the people in your conference make the playoffs. I just that's definitely the thing that I dislike the most about the current structure of the playoffs. As much as it's nice to give teams opportunities late in the season to like still have a chance to for something to fight for, I still think I would prefer a few teams have nothing to play for at the end of the season and have a more exclusive playoffs than to have the current structure where more teams have something to play for at the end of the year, but majority of people get in, so it doesn't necessarily feel as special.
Yeah, and frankly, it gives meaning to if you're a good division or a good conference, right? If we go back to the way conferences are now, you're not getting knocked out because the other conference was terrible, right? And I have to do this because we haven't talked enough about them. Red Bull finished 18th this year in the Supporter Shield. Now, this whole idea of making 16 teams, scrap it. Let's go to 18 because I'm just kidding. But really, like if you look at it, the bottom from 19 down to 30 is majority Western Conference. But Red Bull are on the outside because the Eastern Conference was so strong. So, and again, I'm not obviously advocating for that, but you're looking at teams that are like, okay, well, if we do 16 and of the 16, 10 of the 16 are from the East, well, or from what used to be the old East. Okay, that's the way we do it, right? But don't hurt teams just because the rest of their conference or their old conference is good. I think that allows for, again, in a league where a lot of people complain about the meritocracy and the fake parity and whatever. This is a really good way to say, okay, we're just going to pick the best of the best and we're going to play. Forget conferences, we're going to go. And I think it's a really good way to do that.
Yeah, agreed.
Before we go, I want to get question of the week because this is going to impact our next episode. It's going live on Wednesday, so make sure you follow us for that. We posted on our YouTube and our Twitter. We needed your help. As we enter the second round of the MLS Cup playoffs, all we wanted to know is which of the 8 teams has the best chance of moving on. I gave on Twitter the 3 options of Philadelphia, Inter Miami, LAFC, or other. And then I did the same thing on Twitter, or rather on YouTube, I gave those, and then I did the same thing on Twitter. And I am interested in what you said because we had a really good balance here. We had 9 votes there, plus we had 29 votes total. Okay, so on Twitter, we had 6 votes for Philly, 6 votes for LAFC, 2 votes for Inter Miami, and 6 votes for other, including New York City FC. Crazy. And then on YouTube, we had, oh gosh, I need to do math now.
Uh-oh,
Yes.
math is hard.
Yes, it is. We had 1 vote for Philly. We had 4 votes for Inter Miami. We had 3 votes for LAFC. And we had 1 vote for other, but there was no comment on it. So, Connor, give a little spoiler here.
Oh.
Oh, and by the way, sorry, I just want to give a shout out. New York City FC, New York City FC shout came from the account on Twitter, Izzy at New York City FC playoffs. A little biased, if you ask me. I don't know if we,
I mean
I don't know, but
that seems to check out.
um, no, Izzy, we appreciate the comment. It does look a little dull for you now that Martinez is hurt. But Connor, what are you thinking? Maybe just give a little spoiler towards your predictions for next episode.
Oh, how dare you make me spoil? Um, yeah, my favorite right now for the cup is LAFC. I think I talked about this when we recapped round one, but I love the momentum they've had since Sun joined the team, and they have that star power that you need in an MLS Cup playoff run. I feel like it ends Sharundalos last season. I feel like this is like collecting all the Infinity Stones. Everything is lining up for LAFC, in my opinion, which is going to be fantastic when they lose this round because I just podcast curse them.
I love it. I love it. And you know what stinks is we're gonna double down because that's who I have too. I'm all aboard the LAFC train. I
No,
just I
wait,
just don't think.
maybe that reverses it though.
Oh yeah,
It's like double
it's
negatives. It's like I
constructive
curse
dis
them and you curse them.
yeah, it's destructive interference, so it just balances each other out. I like it. Um yeah, I can't see them doing anything other than just running the table. And again, it's and we're gonna talk about this. It is a shame that Vancouver LAFC is not the first is not the Western Conference final because man, that's gonna be such a good game. But
Forget Western Conference final. I want that to be the MLS Cup final.
and you know what? Maybe with our, Don, we know you listen. We know you're a big
Here
fan,
we go again.
but we
Bring it
know
all together.
you heard our ideas for this the idea of how we move forward for the single table. All I'm asking for is maybe a nice scarf, a free Apple TV subscription, and maybe a trip on the private jet to MLS Cup. That's all I'm asking, just for the use of our idea. You can have it. Just and Connor doesn't even need to come. He doesn't watch soccer anyway, so just do it for me. Yeah.
Wow. Not even gonna invite me? Not even a +1?
If he gives me the plus, I would need +2 because Grace is going to come. So
I'm your second option.
you try telling Grace no and see how that works for you.
I will. Grace, you're staying home.
She's going to go get you. Um, thanks everybody for listening to this rather long episode. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcast so you know when the next episode goes live, which will be our round 2 preview and prediction. Very, very excited for that. Listen. I did not put a podcast curse on anybody. I am 8 for 8 in the first round, so it's time to start cursing some teams. Make sure you're following us on social media so that you can be a part of what we're doing here. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok. Those are our 3 big ones. Go ahead and follow us there to interact with us. But yeah, thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players and MLS Podcast. See ya.